Jewish time. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Torah study. Today's April 28th. April 28th today. And we are studying today. Oh, it's not on the screen.
It's still ER.
We're trying to get it on the big screen as I welcome everybody here who's with us live and with us online.
On the 20th of ER,
Today's the 17th of ER. No, it's the 16th of ER. I'm trying to think how I get it up on the screen. Why? Oh, here it is. Probably, I know why. All right, good. I was just trying to get it up on the screen. Hopefully this is going to work. Yeah, tomorrow night is a Jewish holiday of Lag BaOmer, when we celebrate the yard site of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the master of Kabbalah.
And you're really going to have a bonfire here?
Yeah.
Who are you burning? Well, it's not going to be your usual bonfire.
It's going to be tomorrow night, as advertised. I think it's at 7:30 p.m. We're going to have this event. Yeah, s'mores. I think it's called S'mores, Songs, and More.
Chocolate marshmallows and graham crackers.
S'mores, Songs, and More, I think is what it's called. How did I get it? Oh, there it is. Good. I don't know what I just did, but I did something. Okay, good. Fine. So we're studying Talmud today. If you have the black Talmud book, it's the Ein Yaakov. We are on page 215. We're learning today about what the Talmud says about dreams. Now, the Talmud today on dreams is just a little bit of an introduction to what the Talmud really has to say about dreams, which is later on in the Talmud. That's going to be in about 35 folios of Talmud. But the Talmud does give us a little taste of what happens to someone who doesn't have a dream. Let's take a look. You think it's good to dream or bad to dream? What do you think? It's good to dream.
It shows that you're in REM sleep.
REM sleep, that's right. A rapid eye movement. Okay, fine. Let's take a look at the idea of dreams here, right here on bottom of page 215. If you have the book, if you don't have the book, then just follow along with us. The Ein Yaakov continues as follows. Said Rabbi Yonah, in the name of Rabbi Zera, whoever sleeps 7 days in a row without having a dream is called wicked, evil. For it says in Proverbs, he will rest sated and not be visited with evil. Page 216. If you have the black Ein Yaakov book. It says in Proverbs of King Solomon, for he will rest satiated, and not be visited with evil. Now the word satiated, sova, also means sheva, 7. So you can read it either as he will rest sated and not be visited with evil, or he will rest 7 days and not be visited with evil. Accordingly, the verse means that if a person sleeps for 7 days without being visited with a dream from heaven, it demonstrates that he's wicked, and therefore heaven is not interested in sending him messages. In other words, this is the way that we read the verse. The basic reading is he will rest sated and not be visited with evil, which doesn't really make any much sense, right? This is a lot like the book of Psalms. You know, a lot of people, they tell me, oh, Rabbi, the book of Psalms, it's so depressing, it's dark, it's whatever. And I say to them, you don't understand the first thing that's going on in the book of Psalms. You know, it's kind of like reading Einstein's theory of relativity and saying, oh, this is boring. You don't understand a word, that's why you think it's boring, right? There's much, much more than meets the eye to the Psalms of David, the Proverbs of...
The last thing Melech David would have written was black, dark things.
Exactly, well said, says Steve Rubin here. He says the last thing King David would have done is to write black, dark things, right? So what did he do? So you look at this, a classic verse from Proverbs. On the face value, it means like nothing. It looks like they would.
Proverbs.
In South Africa, we say Proverbs.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
Anytime somebody corrects my pronunciation, I say that's how we say it in South Africa. So, and they can't argue with that. Unless I have a South African with me, then I have a problem. But in Proverbs, Mishlei, it's difficult to understand what it means. He will rest sated and not be visited with evil. I mean, what are they smoking? Like, what does that even mean? But when you read the Talmud, it explains. The Talmud says, he will rest 7 and not be visited. Evil. Now, what does this tell us about the context of dreams in general? It means that dreams are actually good things. which is very surprising.
What about nightmares? Still dreams. I know, but they're not good things. They're evil. They're scary. I don't know.
Rabbi,
My sister-in-law told me yesterday that her daughter, her 6-year-old, knocked on the door in the middle of the night. Mommy, I just had a good dream.
Oh, thank you.
So she was like, okay, that's great.
so why you had a bed?
You want to tell me about it? No, I just wanted to tell you that I had a good dream.
To wake you up.
Do you need me to tuck you in? No. Okay, thank you.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
if a tree falls in the forest, it doesn't make a sound if no one's there to hear it. If a person doesn't remember a dream, no, if you have a dream and don't remember it, because doctors say everybody dreams, it's a question of whether you recall the dream.
Most people don't.
So let me talk to you about the subconscious right now a little bit. Let's explore a little bit in the subconscious. And this is what's great about what we're doing now as we're moving from a fully virtual audience to a virtual/live audience. We have Steve and Marty, Rob and Keith over here. Online we have Winston and Elaine on YouTube. We got Corey and Howard and Susan and Terry on Facebook, and everyone else that's with us live and later. It's terrific. I just got a message from someone who just told me that they just finished the Gates of Trust. Can you imagine? Is that cool? They just finished studying the Gates of Trust with me. You know, it's amazing. You can literally dance at 2 weddings at the same time. I mean, I'm teaching this and someone's learning with me Gates of Trust at the same time. It's amazing. The wonders of modern technology. So we have to understand the nature of dreams. Certainly the implication here is that a dream is a good thing. Marty's asking a question, what about nightmares? Rob's asking a question, what happens if you don't remember the dream? So let's try to put things a little bit into context. There's different kinds of dreams. The dream that we're talking about in this piece of Talmud is when someone from heaven visits you and they want to tell you something, right? They want to tell you a message. Yeah, like the ladder of Jacob. It's actually interesting you say that, Steve, because we find a lot of prophetic dreams in the Torah. I mean, just to name a few, there's the dream of Jacob, the ladder of the angels up and down. There's the dreams of Pharaoh, and he wasn't exactly the most righteous individual, right? Pharaoh with the 7 cows, the fat cows and the thin cows, right? He foretold the future of Egypt. We have the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar we learned about recently with Daniel's interpretation, right, about the future of humanity. We have the dreams of Joseph, right, about the brothers bowing down to him. Lots of dreams in the Torah. So clearly they were prophecies revealed to ordinary individuals. We learned even yesterday, actually, about, it was this Monday, we learned about a king, the Persian King Darius, who threw Daniel into the dungeon because he couldn't find his clothes. So God comes to him in a dream and he says, why did you do this? Why do you persecute this righteous man? You're going to lose your eyesight until you release him, until he prays for you, right? So we see this idea that God reveals himself to people in dreams.
So is that what they're talking about? Significant dreams,
Yeah.
not mundane dreams.
Now, the way that the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Chabad Rebbe, explains it is, to me, the most sensible and beautiful explanation of dreams. He explains like this. The Rebbe Rashab explains that there's actually an angel who is tasked with dreams. He's the head of the dreams committee.
What?
The dream squad, yeah. That's his job. You know, you have an angel, Gabriel is in charge of judgment. Raphael is in charge of healing, right? He's doing the whole vaccine thing, you know. Then there's an angel in charge of dreams. Now, what does the angel in charge of dreams do? He does the following. You see, it's his job. Corey says she loves when the Rebbe enters her dreams. Happens very rarely. That's actually a beautiful thing. So what happens here is like this, is that when we sleep at night, we mentioned a few days ago, that sleep is actually 1/60th of death. Why is it 1/60th of death? Because your soul leaves your body. I was with somebody yesterday, moments before her soul left her body, surrounded by her children. And it was quite a holy experience to see that transition. When the soul leaves the body entirely without intending to return, that's death. When the soul leaves the body partially, that's sleep. Which is why we do a confession before we go to sleep at night, just like we do a confession before we die. And a soul accounting. Now, when we sleep, since the soul is going up to heaven in order to be rejuvenated, spelled Jew, in order to come back to us the next morning, at least Steve got the joke. So,
We got it.
so since the soul needs to come back to us in the morning, right? It's going to get refreshed. It's going to be recharged. It's like plugging your cell phone into the wall to get fully juiced up for the morning. Another Jew. So there, what happens is that the soul needs to be able to rise back up to heaven unencumbered. The problem is that it's held down by what we call in Hebrew Jorah. Jorah. How do you translate Jorah, Steve? How do you translate Jorah in from Hebrew?
Oh,
It's a difficult word to translate because
I have no idea what the translation
it's like a very, very descriptive term of garbage. It's not just garbage is just plain garbage. When you say Jorah, it stinks, it smells, it's disgusting. It comes with a whole imagery, right? Jorah. It's not even a Hebrew word. It must be Arabic or something.
I think it's Aramaic. I don't
Maybe
think
no, I don't think it's Aramaic. I don't think it's Aramaic.
No?
Yeah, it sounds Arabic to me. But anyways, so your soul has a lot of schmutz on it. Schmutz might be a good translation. Why does it have schmutz? Because God gave you a pure soul this morning, a pure, refreshed, gorgeous soul came to you in the morning. And what happened? You spoke words that maybe you shouldn't have spoken. You said things that were inappropriate. You thought things, thought, speech, and action. Thought, speech, and action. Anything that was inappropriate is like lead weights, depending on how bad it was, that chain down the soul and don't allow the soul to rise up. Tethered. So the job of this angel in charge of the dreams, his job is to untether, to scrub it clean, to let go of all the schmutz, of all the words and all the actions and thoughts of that day, so that the soul can rise up like a hot air balloon, literally to throw down the sandbags. So then the soul rises up at night, great. But what happens to those words that were left behind, to the letters of speech, the action and the thoughts that were left behind, that were divested? Those remain in your conscious mind while you sleep. And because they're scrambled, because they were thrown off the hot air balloon, because they were scrambled, therefore they come to you, what you dream about is a mishka bubble of the ideas that you thought about in that day. So that's why it's possible, Corey, that what you might be dreaming about the Rebbe, maybe you thought deeply about the Rebbe that day. It could be that it was that you thought about or spoke about the Rebbe or saw the Rebbe or something. It could be, but then again, typically the Rebbe wouldn't be an idea that would be divested from the, there would be something that would lift you up and not take you down. But if you're thinking about someone that you don't like, or maybe if you're dreaming about, politics or, things that concern you, right? Then that's typically what you're going to be dreaming about that night. And those are the nonsensical dreams. And I don't believe that what this Talmud is talking about, when it says that someone that doesn't dream for 7 days is evil, I don't believe it's talking about those kind of dreams. Because those are the dreams that you dream by default. There was a story in elsewhere in the Talmud. It actually comes up later in Brachos, in about 30, 40 folios, where Rava was asked by the Persian king, you Jews are so smart, right? Prove it to me. Tell me what I'm going to dream about tonight. So Rava, the Talmudic sage, says, I'll tell you exactly what you're going to dream about tonight. You're going to dream that your arch enemy, your nemesis, the Greek emperor, will conquer your kingdom, and they will humiliate you personally so badly by forcing you to shepherd pigs with staffs of gold. That's what you're going to dream about tonight.
in your head.
Guess what happened? That's exactly what he dreamed about tonight. He painted such a haunting scene in his mind. So he painted him such a nightmare with such graphic detail that he thought about it all day long. Right? That's what he dreamt about that night. So those are the nonsense dreams. Nourish guy. But then you have dreams that are clearly not nonsense. For example, you fall asleep and you wake up in the morning, your dad comes to you, your deceased father, and he says, you should know that I owe money to Joe so-and-so. And the proof of it would be in a safe deposit box in Switzerland. And this is the code. Imagine you have that dream and you open the bar. You're okay, man. You know what I mean? This is, this is legit, right? So there's certain dreams where you remember, another dream that was very legit was Tevye and the milkman. Right, when he made the match. If my grandmother Cyril came back from the other world just to tell us about the match. Right? So,
That was a great scene.
yeah, that was a
Of
good.
course, he made up the dream.
Of course, but it was a
Right,
great scene.
but if it would have happened, right?
But it was a great
But he
scene.
knew that would convince
At least she
his
thought,
wife.
Golda thought it was a real dream.
Exactly.
So there you go,
That's
right?
why she listened to him.
So the idea here is, good morning, Dean, and thank you, Winston, for your commentary here. Elaine, if you're talking about the godly soul, doesn't that always stay pure? It does stay pure. Of course, we're talking about the godly soul, but it gets bashmutz. You need a shower, right? You need to wash off all the shmutz, right? So what happened here is that when you have a dream that is clearly like, the Rebbe comes to someone in a dream, or another example the Talmud gives, if you have the same dream 3-4 times in a row, your grandmother comes to you and tells you, I want you to lay tefillin. You dismiss it once, you dismiss it twice. Or if a few people come to you and they tell you that they dreamed about you the same dream, then you also know it's another sign it's very legit, right? So these are all heaven-sent messengers, right? There's another interesting kind of dream. It's called She'ilat Chalom. She'ilat Chalom is the question of a dream. Many times when Torah scholars will study, they'll reach a brick wall. They'll reach a brick wall where nobody knows the answer. Many times in the Talmud. Let me tell you, this morning I was studying such a difficult piece of Talmud. My head was spinning. But that was just a very difficult piece. But sometimes you reach a point where you really clarify the debate with your friends and colleagues and peers and teachers, and nobody knows the answer. So what you'll do is that you'll go through a process called She'ilat Chalom, the question of a dream. You'll fast and you'll study and you'll ask, and then you write the question underneath your pillow, and you go to sleep under very specific circumstances. And many times, if you're worthy, if the heavenly Mesivta Shalmaila, the yeshiva of heaven, will find you worthy, they'll give you the dream and the answer. So there's a beautiful story, actually. Thanks, Alicia. I'm glad you're enjoying the conversation. So there's a beautiful story about the Beis Yosef, the author of the Code of Jewish Law, who had a Shailas Chalam. He had a problem that he was studying. He was the author of the Code of Jewish Law. He's the Rabbi Yosef Karo. He lived in Tzfat, in north of Israel, born in Cairo, but he came to Tzfat in the north of Israel, still buried there. And you're talking about 500 years ago. And he was the Sephardic Code of Jewish Law. And he had his questions. He did the Shailas Chalem, the question of a dream, and he got the answer. Beautiful. Validating, right? That day, he's walking down towards the yeshiva, and he overhears 2 yeshiva students, little schnooks, arguing about this piece of Talmud that he was learning. And he just listens in, and he hears them asking, and he comes to exactly his question. He's like, oh. And the other guy says, oh, probably the answer is this.
No, he was right.
He's crestfallen. He was crestfallen. He was like, I just labored for weeks on this question, and I had to literally ask from heaven for an answer. And this little schnooks over here, they got the answer themselves. What's going on over here? He actually had a chavrusa, a study partner, who was an angel, the Magid Mesharim. Whatever, it's a long story, but he would study with an angel. Certain people, they get to study with angels. So he studied with an angel. And he asked the angel, like, what happened? The angel said, listen, your question was a very legitimate question. And truly, the answer needed to come from heaven to inspire you the answer. But once it came down to this earth, it's already here. Now it's free for the taking. So don't feel bad because you shattered the glass ceiling. You blazed the trail. Once the trail was blazed, anybody can walk in it, right? It's interesting, just to show you how vital dreams are. I want to tell you that in the Birkas Kohanim, the priestly blessing. Marty, you're a Kohen, right? No? Not yet?
Not yet. I was working. You didn't pay your annual fee.
All right.
Yeah, well, ask the rabbi, you can make your call.
Okay, so there's
Sorry.
there is a special blessing we make. It's called the priestly blessing. We do it on Shabbos and Yontif. Sorry, on the high holidays. Sorry, the 3 pilgrimage festivals.
During Musaf.
The 3 pilgrimage festivals, we do it during Musaf. It is the priestly blessing. We do it in Israel. They do it every day.
Every day.
Yeah. In the diaspora, we only do it on the 3 pilgrimage festivals. What happened is that when we do that blessing, there's a tune. We go, ah, yeah, 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 yeah. If you happen to have the book, it's on page 352, what I'm about to show you. 352. So what happens is,
in Israel, you don't do it. Only on that nigun?
okay, the nigun comes from the Alter Rebbe, who heard it apparently from a stranger in the forest, who alleged that this tune was the same tune that was sung by the priests in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem when they did the priestly benediction for the Jewish nation, and it was forgotten over time, and it was reminded to the Alter Rebbe. Anyways, while we do that, one of the reasons that we do that, and you'll notice towards the end of the priestly blessing, we go a little longer. Yeah, 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 yeah. We go a little longer. Why? To give the congregation time to make the prayer of a dream. The prayer of a dream. It goes like this. Master of the universe, I am yours and my dreams are yours. I have dreamed a dream and I do not know what it is. May it be, O Lord, my God and God of my fathers, that all my dreams concerning myself and concerning anyone of Israel shall be for good. Whether dreams I dreamed about others or whether I dreamed about myself, whether others dreamed about me. If they are good dreams, strengthen them and reinforce them, and may they be fulfilled in me and in them like the dreams of Joseph, the righteous. But if they require a remedy, heal them like Hezekiah, king of Judah, from his illness. We learned about him. Like Miriam, the prophetess, from her leprosy. Like Naaman, from his leprosy. We learned about him too in the stories of kings of Israel. Like the waters of Marah by Moses, and like the waters of Jericho by Elisha. We also learned about that story as well. As you have changed the curse of the wicked Bilam from a curse to blessing, so shall you change all my dreams concerning myself and concerning all of Israel to good. And guard me, be gracious to me, and favor me. We say that prayer during the priestly blessings. The dreams are very important, right? Later on, the Talmud gets into a beautiful formula to tell us how you can know if a dream is going to be good or bad. But that's a big discussion later. What I wanted to say was there's different kinds of dreams, right? So I believe that this Talmud over here is not talking about the nonsensical dreams. It's talking about the prophetic kinds of dreams, of which I've been talking about. But now, to Rob's question, you asked the question. So what about if you don't know about a dream? If you don't realize, you're not conscious that you had a dream. So to this, I would say that Daniel writes in the book of Daniel, it says that there was a vision of God that appeared, but only a few of us were able to see it, the prophets. But the rest of the people, their knees shook. Their knees trembled. What does that mean? Mazalayu chazi, their soul up above saw, but their conscious mind did not see. Remember, we've learned in Tanya where 5 parts are our soul, 3 parts are invested in our body, and 2 are higher than our body. They're up in heaven. We're like a rope. When a prophet is able to see God down here, to see godliness or spirituality, but all of us are able to see spirituality up in heaven, in the source of our soul, the root of our soul. So what happened was in the book of Daniel is that the people saw godliness, but they weren't aware of they weren't conscious of what they saw. It was only that as they experienced the tremble, they experienced the shiver. An example of this would be when you sometimes are, or someone that's inspired to do teshuvah, or suddenly you're overcome with a guilty conscience and you don't know why. Suddenly you want to make a donation, you want to come to shul, you want to do the right thing, right? And you can't explain it. That would typically be an inspiration from above, something that your soul is seeing up above, but you're just not conscious of it. In other words, whilst your mind, Rob, might not be conscious of the revelation that you're experiencing, other parts of you will be, particularly your gut. We talk about our gut as if it's as if we have like 3 ways of thinking. We have our brain, our heart, and our gut. I'm going to go with my gut. What does that mean? I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with my knee. Like what does that mean? Nobody says I'm going to go with my knee, but you say it's my gut instinct. Like what does that mean? A gut instinct.
Without thinking about it.
So, Khan and I talk about this a lot. There's all these, what do they call them? Probiotics, antibiotics, right? Antibiotics are like, no, but there actually is something to be said about some sort of a consciousness that is within your gut. When you get butterflies in your stomach from someone or something, when somebody makes you feel in your kishkis, right? It's not your mind or heart. Your mind or heart are fine. It's your kishkis. Corey says your gut is your other brain. It's interesting that there is such a research on this. They call it the other brain, but we don't really know what it is. I'm suggesting that your gut is somehow connected to what your soul up above is able to experience, something which we don't yet understand. And that when your soul experiences something up above, you sense it in your gut. which is why certain people, certain encounters or experiences they draw you in or repel you, because there's a higher consciousness that you're not aware of, but it's above. I know you're making faces, but Marty, when you did big business deals, right? When you had to hire someone, did you ever feel in your gut that this is just not the right person? So you see what I'm saying? There's something there, right?
Rabbi,
Yeah.
in the box at the bottom of page 2.
Yeah, I was heading there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting explanation. That, as I interpret it, that dream is not when it says anyone who goes 7 days without a dream is evil. The dream is really a metaphor for not an actual nighttime dream, but a thought. Anyone who goes 7 days without thinking of Torah or messages from God.
Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at this idea. Let's read it inside. If you have the book, we're at the bottom of page 216. If you don't have the book, then don't worry about it. Just listen along. By the way, in the note, it says, the Rashi says the dream is described as a message from heaven, because the Gemara later on says that dreams are a 60th part of prophecy. So sleep is 1/60th of death, and a dream is 1/60th of a prophecy, right? So now, according to its simple meaning, the Gemara refers to someone who sleeps without dreaming for 7 days. Some commentators, however, see a deeper meaning to this teaching of Rab Zera. Our time in this world, with all of its pursuits, pleasures, and joys, is little more than a fleeting dream. We're mostly unconscious, right? What are 70 short years, or even 80, 90 or more, in comparison to the eternity of the afterlife? A person who contemplates this inexorable truth will surely make his service of Hashem primary and his mundane concerns secondary. Often, though, the pressures of earning a living cause a man to forget this. He is unable to see beyond the limited range of his immediate struggles. We deal with the urgent instead of the important. On Shabbos, however, the burdens of earning a livelihood are lifted, freeing a person to think about life from an elevated perspective. That's Shabbos, when you can stop the rat race. At least on Shabbos, then, a person should contemplate the transience of this world and the eternity of the afterlife, and what this means for how he should live his life. Thus, the Talmud says, if a person allows 7 days, which necessarily includes Shabbos, to pass, without being visited by the thought that this life is but a dream, then he is called bad. He has forfeited his weekly opportunity to gain clarity and perspective about life. And that's an interesting comment. An interesting perspective. So they're not mutually exclusive. We can learn the Talmud literally to mean a person that doesn't dream something insightful might be called evil. But maybe to make us feel a little bit better, to take this interpretation, which is a person that doesn't have a conscious thought. A conscious thought of life and reality in context of God Almighty and eternity. If he doesn't have that within 7 days, if you don't have a reality check at least once in 7 days, then there's something wrong with you. On the radio, when I was on the radio, we used to tell us you have to make a station ID every 2 to 3 minutes, I think it was. Station ID, you're listening to the schmooze, separating fact from fiction, and Bubba Meister's from the bottom line. We're on this channel. This is the phone number, right? Why do we do that? Because in case people are tuning out, in case people are tuning in, they should remember what's going on, right? So what this is saying is that you need a station. And by the way, we do the same thing in our morning prayers. When we say the Kaddish, we do it before we start, right in the middle at Baruch Hu, we do it at the end. It's like a station ID to make sure that you remember who you're talking to. We're talking to God, right? Don't get so lost in your thoughts that this is all about you. Remember who you're talking to, right? Don't forget in the presence before whom you stand, right? So what the Talmud seems to be saying, according to the interpretation of the Divrei Eliyahu, the Vilna Gaon, is that this would mean to a person who doesn't have a state of consciousness at least once in 7 days. It's one thing for 6 days a week to lose your soul because you're so busy making a living. But on Shabbos, you shouldn't be working on Shabbos. You should be relaxing and focusing on your faith and your family and your soul, right? On truth. And if you don't do that at least once in 7 days, it means that you don't keep Shabbos. It means you're not conscious of Shabbos, and it means you're evil. What were you gonna say, Rob? Oh, sorry, it was Marty.
Yeah. Oftentimes, dreams, I've been visited by my parents.
Really?
Deceased parents. And it leaves me, even though I felt I didn't have a great relationship with my father, which I told you.
You say you did not?
Did not. Yet in the dream,
It's terrific.
It's uplifting. It's pleasant. It's a young man. It's wonderful. I wake up feeling, boy.
That's amazing. You know, people have told me recently, and we learned about this in our recent course. I think you did it with me, Journey of the Soul. We learned that that a person, while they're still alive, they're flawed. We all have flaws, but after we die, we're flawless. You know, you're cleansed, right? So now you become the person that you could have been, right? And that's why many people will find that their relationship with their deceased loved ones is actually improves instead of disappears after they pass away. And it's really beautiful that you're able to experience that your father and mother come to you in dreams. That's quite amazing. Are those on days when you feel that you've been thinking about them?
Not at all. Not at all.
Not on days that you've been thinking about them. How nice it is. How nice that is. Look, Marty, I think even more highly of you now. You're getting prophetic dreams. It's beautiful. Anything interesting they say? Do they say any lotto numbers or something?
Right. What's the market?
Yeah.
Believe me,
Why don't you dream about something that can help us all?
believe me, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know.
Put a note under your pillow. See what happens. Right? So Corey says, from now on, I thought Corey had another comment there. I'm not sure. It might have been deleted. From now on, I will think of Kaddish as a station. Remind me of who I'm talking to. Love it. Beautiful, Corey. I'm glad you connected with that message. Elaine says microbiome. Microbiome. I'm not sure what that refers to. I think you're talking about the gut.
That's the gut, yeah.
The gut, right? You know, Hannah tells me that when you take antibiotics, you're like killing all the biotics.
Right.
Bio means life.
Take probiotics.
Right, you're killing all that's like a nuclear thing going on in there, you know? So you got to take the probiotics to bring it back to life, you know? You take probiotics every day. All right, so this is what we learned today in the Talmud. Now, interesting, one final interpretation. One final interpretation, folks. It's from the Rabbi Yisrael Miruzhin. Remember, it says, it doesn't say 7 days. Marty interpreted 7 hours, right? It says in King Solomon's Proverbs, it says he will rest sated and not be visited with evil. So we interpreted he will rest 7 and not be visited. Period. Evil. So the Rabbi Yisrael Miruzhin, the Ruzhiner, explains that a person who lives 7 decades of life without coming to the realization that this world is but a dream. This world is fake. And the other side is real. You know, I got to tell a quick story. The Talmud tells us, I think it was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi in the Talmud, whose son had an NDE. You know what that is? Near-death experience. He went to the other side. You know, he died, like clinical death or something. He died. He went to the other side. The Talmud tells us. Yeah, so he died. And he came back. You know, he came back to life. You know, the traffic cop. You know, the traffic cop was notorious for giving out tickets, more tickets than anyone else, to people in Tel Aviv. So when he died, they were burying him, and suddenly they heard in the coffin, you know, at the bottom of the coffin, knocking. He was like, "Hey, I'm still alive." So the rabbi looks and he says, "I've already opened the file." So, the Talmud tells a story of it's a painful story. It's just a joke, right? Obviously.
How do we know that this isn't a dream? How do I know that this isn't a dream and you're in my dream?
Well, you're about to find out. You're about to find out because the Talmud tells us that his son came back from the dead, or from the other side. It must have been, who knows, a few minutes, whatever. Comes back and he says to his son, "No." So what happened? What did you see there? And he says, "Oy la mahafuch ra'isi." I saw a topsy-turvy world. What does that mean? Those that are honored in this world were despised there, and those that are despised in this world were honored there. Isn't that interesting? Topsy-turvy world. You know, our eyesight is like that. You know that our eyes go like, I'm not sure why it does this, but our optic nerve sees everything upside down. Right? Does that mean you're upside down right now?
I'm always upside
Or does that mean I'm upside down? Something's upside down right here because we're flipping, right? So it's interesting. I always found that interesting that the optical nerve does that, because really the reality that we see is inside out. It's upside down,
I
right?
still want to know why people in South Africa don't fall off the earth.
No, it's China.
They're at the bottom.
China.
China.
Right. That's an interesting question. But the point is that this world is a dream. This world is fake. I mean, think about it. You have eternity. You have eternity, right? And you have a little sliver of finitude, affinity, right? What would you rather? What would you pick if you had to choose one? If you had to say, I'll give you 70 years, or I'll give you infinity. What do you want? Of course you take infinity, right? So we live in this little baby box, this little tiny box, and the lights are off in this box because you don't see reality. You don't see Hashem. You don't see God. You don't see miracles. It's like we're all groping in the darkness, like stepping in each other's toes, bumping into each other in this world, right? And then, when we die, it's like to turn the lights on. It's like, oh, right. Oops. Right. That's what happens when we die. When we die from the darkness, from the little box, and we go out into, it's like a baby coming out of the womb. Right. In the womb, you got your eyes closed and you're just nurtured and you're in a little womb. But when you come out, you're like, oh, the real world. I guess it's death compared to anyone else in the womb, to the other twin in the womb. It can consider like you died from the womb. But really, if everybody else's birth, you're like, welcome to the party. Where you been all this time, right? So the idea here is that this world is topsy-turvy. And this world is a mirage. It's a smokescreen. And the test of our lives is to be able to overcome the vision of our eyes and to be able to see with our mind's eye. To be able to see the light with our minds and hearts when all our eyes see is darkness. Because on a superficial level, we judge by what we see. On a true, essential level, we judge by what is, right? So with that being said, the Ruzhiner says this beautiful point that a person who lives 7 decades of life, 7 as in decades, which is a lifespan, 7 years, without coming to the realization that this world is a dream, that would be called bad. Okay, now one last thing over here. Another Amor expounds this theme very differently, reading the word with its regular vowels. He doesn't change it to 7. Ravacha, the son of Rav Chia, the son of Rav Abba, said to Rabbi Yonah, Rabbi Chia, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, said as follows. He reads the verse in Proverbs, anyone who satiates himself with the words of Torah and only then goes to sleep, that is, besides reciting the bedtime Shema, he also satisfies his appetite for Torah by studying for a period of time before going to bed. He will not be informed of bad news. He will not have frightening dreams, for it states, he who rests sated with Torah, will not be visited with evil. And that, my friends, concludes today's Torah study. Corey's asking a question. Is deja vu a connection to a dream or what? Deja vu is potentially connected to a subconscious dream, like Rob asked. You might have dreamed of something and you were not conscious of it. And when that happens, you're like, oh, I feel strangely familiar with this idea, maybe because you saw it in a subconscious dream, or because it's the Torah that you studied before you were born in utero with your mother, as we know that when every child is in utero, that child is studying Torah with an angel. And it gets forgotten. But when you study Torah later, you experience a deja vu, feeling that you've sensed this before. Whence do kosher food and davening protect us from sleep nightmare? So we just answered that by saying that it's not kosher food and davening. It is davening. It's davening and Torah study. It's the Shema and Torah study that satiates you. And when you do that, then you won't be visited with evil. Friends, thank you very much for joining me here this morning. Don't forget, tomorrow night, we're having a Lag BaOmer stories, s'mores, and more. A Lag BaOmer bonfire right here at the Chabad tomorrow night at 7:30. Please join us then and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, everybody. Shalom.
Now, I have to tell you something. Rabbi.